Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Suttala,
And I'm Casey McBride.
and we're here with another fun episode of Stir Crazy Shamans. Welcome, welcome, everyone. We're back on our stride. We're here for day two in a row, so we're going to make the commitment to be here and show up and do some fun magical
Yay.
things. And we had a real fun hike yesterday, and Casey made a trip out to a magical place and got all kinds of cool herbs.
I
And since we were talking about teas
did.
yesterday, it's like, well, how fitting to start talking maybe about the magic of herbs and how you can work with things that I never even knew you can make teas with
Oh, yeah.
to have an experience.
Well, yeah. So there's this shop if you are local to the like Northeast Ohio or whatever you call this area. I think it's in Bedford is the city, but it's called Spirit Apothecary, and they have like every herb that you can think of and about 50 others that you've never even heard of. And I love going there every once in a while just to kind of discover new herbals, medicines to work with. And I always go in there, like, I may have an idea of one or two herbs that I'm sort of looking to try out or restock on. But every single time I go in there, I end up discovering at least one really cool herb that I add to my collection. And I do, it's to me, it's sort of like as much of like enjoying working with the medicine and having the medicine as it is a collection kind of thing for me, because I do have an enormous collection of herbs. But this one, I was just sharing this with Hank. This is holy basil. Now, I've actually used another word for it is like tulsi. You'll see like tulsi tea and like tea bags and different things like that. But it has a really great flavor. It's how to describe it. It's almost like a um, let me spell it again. But yeah, this interesting to me. It's almost like a little bit of like clovey, anisey kind of I don't know, just a really unique smell and flavor. But it's an adaptogen, so it helps your body uh, adapt to dealing with stress. So it's not just like an herbal sedative where it relaxes the body, but it actually helps, like when your body encounters stress, like how it responds to it, so that the effects of stress aren't as much on the body. Is my general understanding of like what an adaptogen is. But yeah, really interesting plant medicine, and I like I said, I worked with it in capsule form. I take in like the like capsules with the extract of it, but I'm really excited just to try the tea. So yeah, but that's the thing, with herbal medicine and teas. To me, it's so much more beautiful to take a plant medicine in the herb form, like make a tea out of it or something like that and drink it rather than just like buy the pill version of an extract and take it. Something about the process of sitting there brewing the tea, waiting for it, and then like connecting with the smell and the taste and the experience of drinking it really helps to connect me with the spirit and the energy of the plant that I'm working with, as opposed to just like popping something real
Right.
quick.
And we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but when you start to bring in that whole experience of it, you're really having a spiritual, a whole totality experience with the plant instead of just a chemical experience with the plant. Because like lavender, yes, it's a sedative. Well, there's different kinds of lavender that aren't. That's another topic. But
Right.
there's this whole energy and spirit of the plant too. That if you're missing that part, what what else could you be experiencing if you had been open to receiving everything the plant had to offer from its body, mind, and spirit? Just like we have a body, mind, and spirit, plants are multidimensional beings. We even have a whole episode in the archives where we had your friend Allie on, I believe, where we
Hmm.
were really talking about like the intelligence and the spirit behind plants and how to connect with them.
Yeah, that was a fun one. No, but have you noticed? Speaking of like lavender, to me, lavender and rose in particular just bring in a ton of upper world energy, like very high vibrational light energy when I drink those flowers. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing.
Well, definitely. And from I've never been so called with the herbs other than for magical purposes, but in aromatherapy, looking at it, the list of what these particular plants are good for is like you have to scroll sometimes to get through it all.
Oh yeah.
And rose specifically has 350 different chemical components to it.
Mm,
And what they do in the drug world, then pharmaceuticals, they say, okay, well, rose has these 350 different chemical components to it. Which one of these 350 is good for depression? Because rose oil, one of the things it's good for is depression. They find that one chemical out of the 350 and they artificially synthesize it, and then they make it. But what happens is you're taking it out of nature, and that synergistic benefit from all these
right.
different chemical components you lose, and now you get side effects. Like depression medication, one side effect is suicide. Seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? So the beautiful thing with using herbs and oils and all these types of things is that you get the way nature intended it, that has a synergistic benefit. And as a rule of caution, just because things are natural doesn't necessarily mean they're good for you. You do want to do your research. Like poison ivy's natural. I don't know if there's a medicinal use to that, right? So it's important, even though these things are natural, not to use it willy nilly. You want to do your research and learn about what these things do and how to appropriately apply them and what amounts and things of that nature.
Yeah, and we call them herbal medicines for a reason. They are a medicine, and a lot of them are very very powerful, especially to people who are more sensitive. Like to this, like with me, for example, stimulant or herbs that are stimulating, I'm very sensitive to. So even like tea, Camellia sinensis, that most people just drink in the morning or whatever and think nothing of it. Like to me, is a very stimulating kind of experience. And maybe you're not sensitive to caffeine or that chemical, but there are just an infinite number of alkaloids, flavonoids, terpenes, different components, organic chemical compounds that are found in these herbs. And so you just want to do your research and know kind of what you're getting into when you go to work with a plant medicine. In general, I would say, just in my own experience and talking to other people, herbs, just the way they're sort of naturally designed or the way they interact with our body, they tend to be much, much, much more gentle on the system. And like Hank said, they're just the synergistic effect of all the compounds within an herb they tend to balance each other out, and like they're kind of made that way for a reason, I guess. But you still do want to be cautious. Like for example, if you're on certain medications, there may be an herb that will like interact with that medication. If you have like high blood
Yep.
pressure, there's some that you don't want to take, etc. So always want to do a lot of research. But were you going to say something?
No, well, grapefruit would be an example, which is
Yeah.
counterindicated with Coumadin and cholesterol-lowering medication. But if you were to take the oil, which is applied topically, and it doesn't get metabolized, then it's a whole different ballgame. So sometimes if you need an herb, and the herb would be counterindicated, look at the oil, because if you're applying it topically, you may be able to get around it depending on where the counterindication is. Is it how it breaks down, and where is it breaking down? Because you might avoid that if you're using like an essential oil over internalizing an herb. So there's a little bit of flexibility with that. And Dr. K, who I'm on with Fridays, if you ever needed to kind of go through stuff with that, between her and I, we can usually figure out if you have to be careful about something or not. Because I'm trained with aromatherapy, she's trained with functional medicine, and has like a huge resource library to look stuff up. Because out of the 350 components of rose, how do you know what's counterindicated with something? So it's really good just to talk about stuff like that and make sure you're being safe when you're going to do it.
But then the other thing too, and where it's a point for me that is kind of exciting, and I like the adventure of it. But for some people who are just getting into herbal medicine, it might be a little intimidating for them. Well, let me say a couple things about this. What I was going to say is that, for example, like dosage, right? People want to know how much of this herb do I need to take to treat whatever condition, and there is no set rule for that. And so, what say for anxiety, for example, one person may like a teaspoon of an herb may be enough to completely treat their anxiety, or another person may need like 5 teaspoons to get the same effect. Now, that may seem kind of like, okay, well, how do I figure it out? And well, the one way is I always say start low. Start with a lower dose, try
Yep.
it out, and then if
Less is
you need
more.
more, then slowly work your way up to finding your effective dose. But the point I really wanted to make is that there's this sort of like false sense that like you go to the doctor, it's like, oh well, then Western medicine prescription pills must be so much more superior because they know exactly the doses you're supposed to take. Well, no, they don't. They tell you a specific number of milligrams. That has nothing to do with whether or not that's actually going to be the effective dose for you. It's the same thing. It's a crapshoot with that medicine too. They just are very more. They are very good at making it seem like they know what they're doing as far as
Right. And everybody's system is different, so they can metabolize differently, and they might not get the same dosage that someone else gets taking the same amount because their body's working differently.
dosages and things.
What's that? Uh oh. Did you freeze or
Oh,
did I freeze?
okay. Am I back now?
You are back now.
Well, you froze, and then I got the white circles of death
Uh
there.
oh.
So
Well,
I
I
didn't hear anything you said for the past 30 seconds.
well, I'm curious. Well, I know
I don't know if
Mike
anyone
and
else did.
yeah, Mike and Shar were checking in saying hello. If you could tell us who froze, was it me or Casey? We don't know who actually, because for me, I wasn't frozen at all, and I was just talking. But I was saying that with even pharmaceuticals, like when you're taking like a prescription drug, you might be breaking it down differently than somebody else taking the same amount and getting a
Right.
different actual effective dose. But that's just the system that they use. And then if you look at aromatherapy, less is way more because one drop of peppermint is equivalent to taking 30 cups of peppermint tea. So
Right.
you definitely don't want to overdose because you could actually, they say, if you take too much of something, you get the opposite of the intended effect.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with lavender, for example, true story with my oldest son Max, I would put one drop of lavender on his onesie when he was little to help him sleep. And I think I sneezed or hiccuped or something where I put a whole dropper full on his pajamas. And instead of helping him to sleep, he was literally up all night because too much lavender acts as a stimulant. Peppermint's a vascular
Wow.
dilator, good for headaches. Too much peppermint overstimulates the blood flow, and you get a peppermint headache. So just two
Yeah.
two little examples where less is more. Start low, go
Well,
high.
to me, that's kind of a cool little like Einie example, right? If you're paying attention to like how much you need to take of the herb and like really listening to the spirit, just taking only what like, as much as your body needs from that herb, then it's beautiful and it heals you. But if you're just unnecessarily taking way too much, then there's like a breakdown in the Einie exchange somehow. I don't know. That just seemed like a cool little example, and then
Right.
you
Well,
get
you've
the
you've you've taken more than you can use, and now you got the surplus. What do you do with it? It creates hoocha, because
right.
that could have gone somewhere else. I guess that's a good example of Heine in a way,
Yeah.
because you don't want to take on more than what you can process, and if you do, then that's creating a density around it.
Right, and I know in personal experience, there have been a number of herbs where I tend to get real excited about herbs that I really like, and so there have been
We can't
some.
tell.
There have been some that I found that when I first start using them, I just, oh, this is amazing. So like I'll drink a cup and then like wait a little while and I'm like, oh, that was so awesome. I'm gonna make another pot and I'll drink a pot of tea, and then like the other couple hours go by and I'll drink more, and then like I'll do that for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden it's just like has the complete opposite effect where before it was relaxing and now it's like causing me anxiety and things, and I'm like, oh crap, well, I can't use that herb anymore. And, so no, but the herbs for me definitely they like my body, and the herbs will tell me like, listen, this is not a healthy thing. You need to really respect the medicine and listen to your body, and yeah, and not just drink tea because it's fun to drink tea.
One thing we're planning on, we have you might remember her coming on as a guest once. We have Mary Ford, who we were out with yesterday and walking through the forest, and it was amazing to me, like things that are kind of out of sight, out of mind for me because I don't recognize plants and what they look like. But like, oh, that's milk thistle, it's good for that. Oh, that's plantain thing. I don't even remember it all. But we're planning to do a recording out in nature with Mary where we can record like identifying things in nature and her telling us what it's good for, and then we'll upload that because we found that bandwidth is an issue to try to live stream it from the woods, unfortunately. But we can definitely do that and upload it later. So look forward to that. We're putting it out there. So now Mary has to say yes, we're going to do this, or we'll make sure we do that. And Char was agreeing that it's a great example of a lot of things in life.
Uh-oh, was I frozen to you?
I'm not sure. I didn't. You weren't saying anything. I thought you were just letting me talk.
No, you were frozen to me, and I was talking the whole time.
Char, I know you, and you were talking the whole time. Oh no. Well, Char, who did you hear talking? Was it Casey or is it Hank? Or is our timelines just not synced up? I'm literally plugged into my internet though, so I don't think it's mine, but maybe.
I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with that. But yeah, I got the white circles of doom. The screen went black and everything.
I've never got white circles of doom. I don't.
Yep.
I don't even know what that
I've
looks like.
never gotten them before today. This is the first time I've gotten them.
Well, how much fun is that?
What were you talking about just now? Oh,
I was talking
Mary
about
and
Mary Ford and doing an episode out in woods where we're just film identifying things in nature and what you can use them for, like the milk thistle and the plantain stuff and the honeysuckle.
oh, and so
Oh,
Hank, what does that? Does it mean Hank was
no,
frozen or
yeah,
Hank was
she was saying
talking?
Hank was frozen.
Okay. Um, hold on, Spirit, bring those words back to me. Oh yeah, it was just amazing to me how many of the plants she was able to identify. And just walking along, something would catch my eye, and I was like, "Can I make tea out of that?" She's like, "Oh yeah, well that's milk thistle, and it's good for the liver, and blah blah blah." And then, but no, it was really cool, and I really like over the years have just well, really over the past couple of years, I've been starting to pick up a little bit more of that information, but I was always too afraid to start to learn about it because I know there are certain plants, if you misidentify them, it could be potentially deadly. But there are also many, many plants that are really easy to identify. And like, even if you do misidentify it, the plants that do look like it are also safe. So there are certain ones that are a little safer to try and identify than others. But I finally feel like I trust myself enough to start doing that. So there's like a handful of mushrooms I'm comfortable identifying and a handful of plants now that I'm comfortable identifying and harvesting. And it's been really cool to take that medicine and yeah, over
Yeah,
here.
and
Oh,
it does look like you were frozen. And Char has a
okay.
theory on that it might be too much tea.
Too much. I haven't had any tea today, actually. Believe it or
You
not.
had something last night. Maybe there's the little
Oh yeah.
time residue
Could
thing
be.
going
Well,
on
I
from.
got lots of teas right here in front of me, so I mean, maybe the energy is on this interacting with
Well,
this.
5911, 5911, 5911. Let's
All
get
right.
your tech issues unstuck here.
Oh,
But for me, it was pretty transparent because I happened to be talking, so like I never noticed that you were frozen. I thought you were just
just
chilling.
really still.
Yeah, still and being receiving of my words.
Yes. Oh,
But the one plant that it was like that little whitish flower looking thing. Casey was walking by and goes, "Oh, there's like a really potent energy with that. Can I make this out of tea?" And Mary's like, "No, that was actually toxic, and that would cause all kinds of issues."
yeah. Yeah, I did. It just stuck out, and I was like, "Ooh, what's that one?" She's like, "No, no, no, no! Don't drink that. Don't do it. It'll kill you." I'm like, "Oh
And the
no!"
other thing that was very interesting to me is there was like one plant that we found where if you were to catch it when it was first budding and first blooming, it would have been an amazing plant medicine. But because the leaves were fully developed now, it had a completely different, a totally different energy to it, and it wouldn't have the same effects anymore. And we had a conversation parallel to that where we were talking about how some plants, you gave the example of neroli, bergamot, and one other, that they're all from the actual same plant, but they
Yeah.
have completely different effects. Which were what
So
was
it's the bitter orange tree, and from the twigs and leaves, we get the essential oil petitgrain, which is one of my favorites for just like relaxing and like anxiety and stuff like that.
and I think it's
Um,
hormone regulating too. On a side note, pretty sure I have to
oh,
check.
very
I'll bring
cool.
up my aromatherapy book while you talk, and
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's actually higher in what is it, linalool than lavender. Like linalool, I think, is the terpene in lavender that's responsible for being really sedating and relaxing, and it's got more of that than lavender does. And so petitgrain from bitter orange is the twigs and leaves, and then from the rind of the fruit, we get bergamot, essentially, or bergamot, however you want to pronounce that. You get which is they use it in flavoring for like Earl Grey tea, and it's like everyone's tasted or smelled bergamot at some point. And then from the flesh of the fruit, you get bitter orange essential oil. And then from the blossoms of the tree, same plant, from the blossoms, you get neroli, which is like one of the most prized and expensive essential oils on the planet. So from that one tree, you get what, four? Petitgrain. Yeah, four. You get four essential oils that are all very different, but it's all from the same one plant, the bitter orange tree. I thought that was really, really cool.
yeah, I'm just looking up on neroli. That is good. As an oil, and I'm sure the herbs would be too, but it may be a different amount that you would take, but a skin rejuvenator and skin toner. It's an antiseptic. It's anti-spasms. It is an aphrodisiac. It helps with circulation issues. It can help to reduce high blood pressure. Antidepressant. And so that's neroli. Of course, this is not official medical information. Bergamot. We actually did a case study with bergamot where there was like assisted living facilities where like mature people weren't eating as much as they should. So they did a study where they would weigh the food before and when it came back, and so they knew how much the people were eating. And then they started to diffuse bergamot into like the eating area, and everybody's appetite increased, and people were eating more. So it's appetite
Oh, that's
regulating.
cool.
So if you have people who like need to eat more, bergamot. I'm misspelling it. That's why I can't find it in my thing. Bergamot. Oh, come on.
Bergamot.
That's what I thought. No matches? Oh, no, here we go. Bergamot. Let's go back. Where is my...
I heard an Australian guy pronounce it Bergamo, so I pronounce it Bergamo.
And it smells like Fruit Loops. If you know what Fruit Loops cereal smells like, that's
You think
kind of
so?
like...
I never made that connection.
Oh, yeah. I definitely was like, oh, that's so fruity feeling. Oh, but come on.
I always just associated it with Earl Grey tea because that was probably my first experience with.
I got a ton of formulas with it, but I'm not finding the actual oil.
What are you looking on a specific website?
No, I'm looking at my aromatherapy book that I teach out of.
Oh,
I was telling you like how I do oh, here we go, bergamot, anxiety, depression, uplifting. It's good for oil and acne. So like if you have someone with really bad acne, like a teenager, you can just take warm water, put a couple drops in, lightly dip like a cloth in, and it's a way to regulate the oil. You're only taking off a little bit. The more oil that you need to take off, the higher dosage of bergamot you use. But that way you're not eliminating all the oil, because the response to the body, if you eliminate all of it, is to produce more. And that's like the paradox with teenagers, because it's so much oil, but you use those cotton, well, not oxycontin,
Oxycontin.
No, you know,
Oh,
but
geez, where's your mind going with
no,
that?
no, there was a product on the market. There was like these little pads that was oxy something, and they would like take all the dirt and grime out. Oxycontin, yeah.
Little
But
Freudian
anyway,
slip there.
no. Well, that stuff's no joke. I had my wisdom teeth out, and side story, I'm on whatever medication they gave me, and while I was out cold for the surgery, when I came to, I was trying to pull the gauze out, and I kept telling everybody, quick, give me a pen and paper, I know the secrets to the universe. So they just thought I was delusional, and they didn't give me a pen and paper. But anyhow, afterwards they gave me that a prescription for that stuff, and I don't swallow pills, so I had a liquid, and I guess I was just so loopy on that stuff. It is not anything to mess around with.
Well, we have to go back though to the bergamot. You were saying for people to put it on their face to take off oil. If you do that, do not go out in the sun afterward.
Right, because it is photosensitizing, and you will crisp.
Yeah.
Casey probably, did you learn that the hard way?
No, I just know from research.
Oh.
Yeah, do not go out in the sun after putting really any citrus oil to be safe, but especially bergamot.
Yeah, so bergamot, this is just from my little book. I figured I would pull it up so you could actually see what I'm referring to as I go through it. I might go back
Increased
to it.
white blood cell production. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it can increase white blood cell production, also for females who have vaginal itching and whatnot. And then precautions, as you already mentioned, photosensitizer, and it can also irritate in bath water. So any combination of citrus oils, like 6 drops or more, can be very not make you not happy if you're in a bath, and it's bringing more attention to your sensitive areas than you would like. And what was the other one you mentioned? Petitgrain?
Petitgrain, yeah.
And that's
Petit.
Petit. I think it's
Yep.
in here. Did I have that one?
Yep, there it is.
You see it?
It's right there, first one. Under results. I'm
Oh.
going to point to the screen like you can see where I'm pointing.
Oh no, that
Oh.
was
Okay.
but it's probably here. There we go. Antidepressant, antiseptic, spasmodic. And when I say aphrodisiac, we like to say it's frigidity reducing instead of aphrodisiac, I guess, because it doesn't like make you do something you don't want to do, but it would make you more open to the experience. Balances the nervous system, and good for mental and physical, energy booster, and increases circulation. So
One of the guys that I like to watch talk about different essential oils. He was saying it's like the manly lavender, because there's a lot of guys who don't want to be. I mean, probably no one watching this show But there'd be some guys that they'd be like, no, I don't want to smell like lavender, But like, it's got a lot of this similar, like relaxing, anti-anxiety, kind of like help you sleep effects. But it's from the leaves and the twigs, which are for some reason more masculine or something.
Yeah.
But
And Shar was asking diffuse bergamot for anxiety. There's so many oils that are good for anxiety. I would
yes,
make a list of them, or whatever you're thinking of, and really ask which one or combination of things is going to create the greatest result for whoever you're using it on. Because for some people, cedar is very relaxing, and some people it drives them nuts. So
oh
it
really?
really,
Cedar's amazing for me. I love cedar.
well, the example I give, because you never know what people have angers for. And there was a situation where, as a child, someone would visit their grandparents and they would get locked in like a cedar chest or something when they were
Oh,
mad.
yeah, I didn't think
And
about
so
that.
for them, like cedar was extremely anxiety. So even if things are good for anxiety, it's always good to kind of tune and use your intuition a little bit and ask the question, which combination of things would create the greatest and most preferred result? Because you never know. If
Mm,
someone has like a bad association or have like if you got sick from eating something and now you have
right.
taste aversion or something like that, you might run into things like that where if you just asked a question or asked them, is there anything you find particularly soothing, like lavender or but bergamot is, I believe I said it was good for anxiety. I already forgot what I.
Yeah,
That's why I put it in a book.
all of the
Citrus,
no, all of the essential oils that come from the bitter orange tree, petitgrain, bergamot, bitter orange, and neroli.
bergamot.
Yeah, that's how the Australian dude pronounced it, so I'm going to stick with it. But they all have, I think that's the terpene, it's linalool. And so they're all relaxing and good for anxiety. But it's just they have varying amounts. Actually, if you wanted essential oil, a little, I think probably petitgrain. It's again same tree, same plant. Just a different part of the plant is petitgrain, and in my opinion, that would be better for. Well, it depends on, like if you have anxiety and depression, bergamot might be better. But if you just have like anxiety because it's like too much energy and you're overstimulated, I would probably say petitgrain would be better.
And actually, let me
So
see
it
what's in the.
depends.
We actually have a roll on. It's for depression. Let me see what the ingredients are because it's going to give me a whole list real quick of what you could, other things that you could use besides bergamot or bergamot or petitgrain.
Yeah,
I love that actually. I'm not making. I like how it sounds.
I know, I know. I tend to. There are a lot of herbs that dude is pronounced way different than I assumed they were pronounced, and I just stick with it because I love it.
So
Big and
in the depression roll-on, and this was tested in like case studies and things like that, and this is available as a roll-on that you would put onto the bottom of the feet and pulse points, or as a diffusion. It is bergamot, peppermint, geranium, Roman chamomile, and cedarwood is are the combination of oils that we use in our blend.
geranium. That was okay. So
And we use
cool,
rose geranium specifically, incidentally.
cool little note on essential oils and the smells, right? So they say two things. If you smell an essential oil and you absolutely love the smell, like you can't get enough of it, then that's an oil that you should probably be working with. But if you smell an essential oil and you hate it and you can't stand the smell of it, that's an essential oil you really need to be working with. Because the way that guy described it is there's some like imbalance somewhere in your mind, body, spirit, energy system where like because you're so out of tune with that, you need to work with that plant medicine until it no longer bothers you and you've like overcome those like issues or whatever. And then that can be like a really great ally for you. And for me, I'll never forget there was a woman at the one of the first jobs they ever had who I didn't know what the smell was at the time, but it was whatever perfume or whatever she was wearing was had just a ton of really strong geranium scent, and I could not even stand to be in the same room as her when she had it on. It smelled so incredibly horrible. But throughout the years, obviously, did since it was a long time ago, did a lot of work to resolve a lot of issues I had around certain things. And I got geranium essential oil, not knowing how it would smell, and I took a smell out of the bottle. And at first, I was like, "Oh, that's that stuff." And even when I first smelled it opening the bottle, I was like, "Oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to work with this one." But then I put some diluted it, put some drops on, and smelled. And then I did shamanic journeying, and I journeyed with the spirit of that plant. And then I had a really deep, powerful healing experience around certain things, and the spirit of geranium helped me to realize certain things and release a lot of heaviness around certain things. And since that journey, since I did that first journey, now I love the smell of geranium. It's like it's one of my favorite smelling essential oils now, and I literally could not even be in the same room as it before doing that work.
Using the same example as before, if you did have an adverse reaction because of some anchored experience and it's bringing that up, to your point, like if that person that doesn't like the cedar would actually stick with it and allow that to come up and work with it, that could be the trigger for these deeply seated things. And another example would be my wife's mom, my mother in law. When she was little, she went to this camp where she was so lightweight. She went to a camp where they would try to fatten you up, and every single day they had to eat this dish called milk rice, which is like rice boiled in milk, and then they would add cinnamon sugar, and like melted butter on top of it. And she has such an aversion to cinnamon because of this. She can't
Mm.
even be in the same room. Like it's terrible for when she comes to visit in the fall, and so many places put those cinnamon brooms in the entryways.
Mm-hmm.
She's like just going crazy like going into those places, but that's a deeply seated anchor that could be released and resolved if you're willing to look at it. So I love that. It means you really need it if you don't like it.
Right.
Shar was asking, can you combine that combination you mentioned, Hank, with antidepressant medication? It's counterindicated with antidepressant. If they're already on something, then because of the way it triggers things in the brain and what it does, it may not work along with medications. So
Yeah.
this would be something that you would try, hopefully before having to go on medications or working with your doctor to get off the medications to try this. You definitely want to get your physician involved, and they would probably tell you you're crazy because that's an
Right.
old wives' tale that these things work.
Oh, that's a whole interesting point too. So like practices of magic, like I think here we call like Wicca, right, and all of that, and even like shamanism and all that was very, very demonized by the Christian Church and in like Western culture for a long time. And a lot of people don't realize that herbal medicine was right up there with all that stuff. It was considered witchcraft, and it was considered the devil's work and all of that. And now, like, look at how many essential oil companies are out there, and like herbal tea companies are out there. And but it was for a long time, it was completely demonized as like just like devil worship if you worked with
Yeah.
herbal medicine.
Well, and the thing is, most of the pharmaceuticals, guess where they come from? They come from
Right.
looking at oils, and like wintergreen, for example, has natural aspirin. You could actually overdose really easily on wintergreen. But
Yeah. Don't apply wintergreen neat to your skin. You could die.
yeah, yeah, you definitely you might put a drop or two in a whole roll-on bottle. It's
Right.
same thing with birch. You could overdose on that very very easily. But anyway, yeah, that's a whole other. Oh, just be very respectful of the plants, and if you're going to be really looking to ingest herbs or use oils, it's always good to get a certified aromatherapist or somebody who's like an herbalist to give you some coaching around it. I
Or
happen to know one.
or play it safe, because we've been talking a lot about essential oils, and they're powerful, potent medicine, but um, just the dried herb form of many of these herbs is one infinitely less expensive and way safer to ingest. If you're going to ingest something, first off, find out whether or not it is an
Oh,
herb that you can actually make into tea and ingest. But if you can, I would recommend over popping a drop of essential oil into like a cup and drinking it. Just get the herb and make that into tea. It's way safer to
and
do
actually,
that.
I don't advocate the ingestion of any essential oils, period. And I know there's a lot
Yeah.
of companies that do that, but in the States specifically, the ingestion of an oil is considered aromatic medicine and should only be recommended by a medical doctor who's also trained in aromatherapy for a lot of the counterindicated reasons. But when you're applying it topically, you're getting a way more measured dose. It's not being metabolized by the liver and other things, and it's just overall kinder in the system. So you really want to think about that.
But and essential oils, I don't know how to put it. They're great because they're bringing all of these herbs into like the forefront of people's minds in a convenient way for them to use. But at the same time, I think it will take away from the magic of, like I said, like interacting with like just the dry herb plant form. And to me, it's such an amazing ritual. I think if you're working with herbal medicine, like
Uh oh. Now I see Casey frozen. Oh no. But he'll be back, I'm sure. He's getting those white circles of doom or whatnot. But echoing where he was going with that, I started with oils and I'm now moving over to herbs. And I find the experience when you're dealing with the herb itself in its raw form, it's not processed, that the spiritual experience is way more potent than if you have an oil that there's 220 pounds of plant material that had to be reduced down to 1 pound of oil, and it's just a different process and experience with it. So I definitely would advocate also for the use of herbs or the combination, whichever. Now I got a white circle of doom for Casey. Oh no,
Oh
you're
no,
back.
there we go. It's my internet. I looked. It's my internet today. I usually have really great internet access.
Oh no, he's stopping again.
My internet was like not. It said I was not connected.
Well, what you missed, I don't know if you could hear me, but I was echoing what you were saying
Oh
that
no, you're frozen. Oh no,
I started with oils and now
you're
I'm
good.
moving more into herbs, and I find that I gave the example that the processing required for lavender oil, you're taking 220 pounds of plant material, distilling it down to 1 pound of oil, that there's a whole bunch of processing and things involved with that. But the real totality of the plant is not just the oil, it's the whole plant.
Right,
And not all plants have essential oils. There's some things that
right.
you could use as herbs that don't even have an oil anyway. So you get a much more rich spiritual experience, and you can ask the spirit of the plant. It's easier to connect, in my opinion, with that. Where with essential oils, it really more is kind of like a.
Well, at least in this country, it's become such a like, oh, I got to run out the door, but I get a little bit of a headache. Just okay, out the door. Whereas if you're even if you were just taking it to kind of treat something quick, you still have to sit there, heat up the water, pour the tea, let it steep, sit there, smell it, and drink that warm cup
Yeah, it's a kind of more of your physical representation of the intention to fill in
of
the.
tea. Taste it. Oh, you
No, you froze again, but I think I picked up your thought really well, and you froze it again. Well, when you come back, Casey, maybe we should wrap because your internet's all like wonky now. You're in and out, in and out. Casey took some tea yesterday, and I think he's a little interdimensional now. He's all over the place. Casey, come back, and then we'll wrap, and hopefully tomorrow we don't have this crap. All right, maybe I should message him. But any questions from anybody that's watching that I could address while Casey comes back?
I don't know.
Well,
I
I was
don't
just
know.
saying, I sang a cool little tune that says, "When you come back, maybe we should wrap it tomorrow. We won't have this crap."
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, barring that I may, disappear here in another second, maybe we should wrap it up real quick.
Yeah, but if you have questions, make them in the comments. We will address them next time when Casey doesn't have his spotty internet. Because I could talk about oils all day, but all the oils, the herbs do the same thing. So you could do it with that too. All right.
My wrapping up thoughts are herbs are wonderful.
Yep. And my thoughts are, I agree, and oils are too, but don't praise one over the other because they each have their place in this world. So, and now, and Casey and I is in so many things, we're bringing each other into like he's one extreme in one area, I'm another extreme in the other area, and we find that we are harmonizing different
Yes.
skill sets very beautifully. So,
Oh yeah.
this is just another one of those areas that we're going to start cross connecting into each other's worlds.
I love it.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We will catch you next time.